Welcome to the third episode of the Nesting Eagles podcast and happy Valentine's Day weekend. We are coordinators of the Bald Eagle Nest Watch for the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance and citizen scientists. I am Drew with my co-host Beth. Beth, how was your Valentine's?
It was very snowy, and so it was pizza and movies.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. Yeah. That's always enjoyable. We wanted to come back to you and talk a little bit first off, start about what's going on during the ball league during the season. Now we're kind of in the early season. One expression that I say quite a bit, and Beth has heard it a lot through the trainings and everything, is that bald eagles are a romantic bird, and a lot of them are going to have eggs in the nests by Valentine's Day. And I was actually looking over my area in the southern Wisconsin, and we have seen quite a few nests with eggs recently. So around that mid February timeframe, it seems to kick up. How about your area in the southeast, Beth? Are you seeing a lot of eggs
Same
now?
thing. Either they
Yeah,
were there and they've flown off for these snowstorms, or they've gone on eggs.
yeah.
But a lot have in the last 2 days gone on eggs.
Yeah, and that gets tricky for them, especially for the adults. You famously see them at a lot of the nest cams where, when there's a big snowfall, you see the adult just pretty much buried in snow at the nest. So they're very dedicated once they're on eggs to do that, and just stay there through thick and thin, through these storms.
But I think both you and I believe that that is less of an issue for them than the sun is.
Yeah,
I'd rather be
absolutely.
colder than
Yeah,
warmer.
yeah, they're very adept. We're trying something new here too. You might notice that we're a little bit smaller, and we're showing one of. Is this Beth? Beth, is this yours or Ken's
Yep,
shot?
this
Okay.
is mine.
Yeah.
This
So
was just in the last week. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll try that. We'll give you a little, give the audience a little something to look at eagle wise. Maybe eventually, if listeners want to send in their pictures, maybe we can share it during the podcast on the screen. So if you do have some good eagle shots you want to share with us, our email is nestingeaglespodcast@gmail.com, and maybe that'll be a fun little thing to do in the future. So send us those pictures, or we'll be more and more on social media. We're still kind of ramping that up. So share those pictures with us, and we'll be happy to share those with the rest of the audience. I think that'll be something fun.
And if I
Um,
can say one thing about this picture, it looks like I am standing below this bird taking a photograph, and I am a house and a half length away from it.
yeah,
So I just have a long lens and then I cropped it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I am not really in this eagle's mindset of being a disturbance to it. I'm sure it was aware I was there,
yeah.
but I was far enough away I was not disturbing it.
Yeah, and that gets into kind of our last podcast where we talked about etiquette, the eagle, around the nesting eagle, around nests, and basically around eagles in general, what we want to do. So it's great to have that longer lens. Is probably necessary to photograph them, especially if you're at the nest and
Still
you don't
paying
want to
for it.
disturb them. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those can get expensive, but
Yeah.
you and Ken take great shots. So I'm always excited to see your photography. So
Thanks.
um,
I give credit to the camera, and Ken
y-
has a better steady hand than I do.
yeah, and that technology now with I remember when I first got into photography, I kind of dabble, not as good as Ken and Beth, but when you first do it, especially with a heavy lens, it's real hard to to keep that steady. And they have features now that make it much easier, with it kind of balancing it and removing that hand waggle, I guess.
It stabilizes the
Yeah,
photo. And
yeah,
then, for me, I try to hide behind a tree or a fence or something. Again, the eagle knows I'm there.
yeah,
But by being braced up against an object, not having a tripod, and just being able to shoot quickly and move away,
yeah.
my objective is to, if I am disruptive, I am briefly disruptive.
Yep. And
And then have something to stabilize myself with.
yeah, absolutely. And just wanted to talk a little bit. We're going to talk every episode because we are part of the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance. So I will include the website in the show notes, but great program. They do stuff like the Bald Eagle Nest Watch. They have properties. They do a lot of bird walks and bird talks. So check them out. There's actually a lot of stuff, even if you're not in the Madison area, that you can participate in. So yeah, great program, and we're thankful to have them as our partners, and I was grateful to have them partner up with me when I initially wanted to set up the Nest Watts in Wisconsin. So great group of people, and it's check them out, and if you can help them out, donations or whatnot. So
Very supportive.
yes, yes. And let's talk a little bit, kind of wanted to, um, I guess, with this eagle that we have on the screen right now, that Beth wanted to talk about young eagles this time as a topic, because they kind of take a different route than a lot of the established eagle pairs. I just wanted to talk about that. Beth, can you explain a little bit about what we're seeing here in this picture, and a little bit about the nest that this female is from?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna clarify something you're saying, Drew, because sometimes I get hung up on semantics. But when Drew is referring to a young eagle, he means it is a mature bald eagle that is young, as opposed to a juvenile or a subadult, which would be somewhere between 1 and 4 years. This bird that we're looking at is probably at the 4.5 year mark. So um, she's leaving subadulthood and she has entered her young adult eagle stage.
Yeah, and I'll use my mouse here, and it's got the little hand to kind of show. You can see her beak still has some coloring, still has some brown in her, like around her eye. There's still some brown in there, so that tells you. And actually on her tail feather too, you can kind of see some brown. That clues us into that it's a younger, as sorry, I should have said younger adults, not younger eagles. That was my bad. But yeah, that this is a younger adult eagle that just reached adulthood. We know that from the coloring. We kind of call it. I know a big term like for this is called dusting or dirty,
Yeah,
because
it's
it's
got a
got
dirty
a
tail. Yep.
yeah, yeah. It looks kind of like it's gotten into some mud or whatnot, but that's just the coloring changing over. She'll eventually go back. Eventually, when she molts a little bit more, she'll go back and lose that brown, and she'll look like a full adult coloring. But um,
And I
uh,
think they're very interesting looking at this age. What's great about this age is it's incredibly easy to identify. Um, so we know this more mature male has brought a younger female to his territory, and he's hoping that this year he'll be successful in raising young with her. And they have been together since might have been even late September that they were spotted. And if, for instance, they had just gotten together last month, the chances of them laying eggs, I would suspect, would be very, very slim. I feel like you would think that as well, Drew.
yes, yeah,
That would be a pair that is going to end up playing house instead of actually nesting. But because these two birds have been together now for several months, um, all signs would indicate they have been copulating. They have worked significantly on the nest, more so than he has in previous years with other females. So I have a good feeling about them, and
yeah.
I'm hoping I'm accurate about that because it would be nice to see this nest after existing for 4 years that it finally is successful in having young.
Yeah.
Um, so
Um,
go
it-
ahead.
yeah, and just Beth used the term called playing house, and it's a term. I don't know if I don't know if I started that, but I'm
You're
honestly, I
the
don't know.
only person I've ever
Yeah.
heard say that.
Yeah, so I think I might have started that expression, and what I mean by that is what we see a lot of times with the younger eagles is they establish a new territory, they build the nests. Most of the time, like this one, you'll see maybe of obviously a younger adult. At least one of them, if not both of them, are younger. And what I mean by playing house is they kind of they go through the motions of the process. They build the nest, they do all their pair bonding and get to know each other. And you might see some copulation and some other pair bonding expressions, locking talons and doing the eagle dance that we talked about before. But once they get to this, like right now in southern Wisconsin, where they should be starting to lay eggs, they might not do that in that first year. And I've called it playing house. They're just practicing the routine, and they get to that point where they're about to lay eggs. And for whatever reason, it could be biological, where maybe the adults they're not quite ready, or the female's not quite ready to um, lay a fertilized egg, or maybe it just for whatever reason that first year they need that time to get through the routine, and then that next year. And we've seen it over and over again when we hear about new territories that pop up, and we can see, like, for example, this one, we can see that it's definitely a younger eagle. Um, you get that playing house phase usually for that first year, and then that second year is usually when they go the whole way and establish and lay eggs. So it's a process that we've seen over and over again, and I'm pretty confident that it is a thing. There are some, for whatever reason, that we find that are new established eagles that lay eggs that first year, but I'd say the vast majority of them have that playing house phase for at least that first year.
Now,
And
I'm a little hopeful about these two because last night we had a bit of a heavy, intense snowfall where we were getting like an inch of snow per hour. And the female sat beside the nest all night. And that is typically in inclement weather, the pair flies to, I would assume, a heavily wooded area or somewhere where they're more
yeah,
protected than they are here. So she spent the night by the nest and she is still there. So my hope is, and I hope I'm not jinxed for speaking this out loud. My hope is that she feels she's near
yeah.
time to lay an egg, and so she's sticking close to the nest. And they
Have
also
you?
were bringing in sticks this morning also.
Yeah, I know, Beth, you're in contact. You go out there and you're also in contact with a lot of the neighbors around this nest. Has anybody seen copulation yet?
Yes.
They have. Okay.
And Robin did. So one of
Okay.
the watchers of this nest, Robin and
Okay.
I are the two watcher groups, and she did see copulation.
Okay. Yeah, that's a
So did
great
some of
sign.
the neighbors.
Yeah. Great
And
sign.
and
Yeah.
it's been photographed by other photographers that they
Okay.
copulated.
That's a great sign. Yeah, it's I'm very hopeful for this nest. It's very interesting,
It's
and
unique.
yeah, I'm excited to hear your updates on that nest. I think it's an interesting one, especially being I'll say more of an urban nest, and that's always interesting to see. Just to talk a little bit about more about younger eagles. One thing that I've observed also is um, they have the instincts that tell them to do all these steps. Once they lay eggs and they're starting that process, the younger eagles are a little flighty, I would say, a little bit. They haven't gotten the routine as well. So things like what we call shift changes. Shift change is basically when they're on eggs. Um, Periodically, the eagles will switch who's on the eggs, who's incubating, and the other one goes off and maybe goes hunts, or just stretching out their wings or whatever. But they do that periodically, and it's definitely a more not choreographed process, things like that, as well as sometimes they forget to feed eaglets and incubate eagle and brood eaglets and all that. So they can be a little flighty, and it's kind of a fun process. I can usually tell, and I imagine Beth can too, even if you go to a new nest and you watch the eagles for a little while, just by their behaviors and how good they are at the process, you can probably tell their basic age and how much experience they have just by how they do the process. I know.
The old pros are like a choreographed dance.
Yeah,
One steps off, the other steps on.
yeah. It's
There's more
beautiful.
awkwardness with younger.
Yeah, and then you get that time. I remember a nest actually that I monitored out in Colorado that was new. It was that first year, and I monitored it, and they would forget they'd go for a shift change, but then they both leave. It's like, guys, hello.
Wait, I thought you had it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's pretty funny, and it's I think it's like also like humans. I have three kids, and just thinking back to my first one, like you're still working on the process, and like I'm old hat now at stuff, but like that first kid, you're just like, what do I do? So it takes some time to do that, and they have the instincts for it, but I think there is a lot of experience that they have to learn how to be a good parent eagle. And I think they take that as little as down to, because their talons, you know a lot of animals and prey items have been at the end of those talons, and you can imagine if what they do is they tuck them in, so they don't pierce the eggs or
They
don't. Yeah,
they do
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so just little things like that, or I've seen and heard, from the nest cams, and also experienced it, is a lot of them gets a little overzealous about bringing in large sticks, and if they're not experienced, sometimes they drop a stick right on the egg or on the eaglet, little eaglets. So it's all a process. And another thing we see in the younger adults, nesting adults, is usually less eaglets that they raise, less smaller clutches. And you've probably seen that too, Beth, where you're seeing one or two. Um, I honestly, maybe you've seen it, Beth, but I don't think I can remember a first or second year pair that we know is that young have like triplets. It doesn't. I don't.
I think SS did.
Did they? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are exceptions, but most of the times they kind of stick to one or maybe two.
I
That
wonder how much
first.
control they have over that though,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. It's hard to
I
say.
just don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but and they're still learning. It's a lot of times on how successful they are and how many they raise is how successful they are catching prey items and getting food for their eaglets. So that's probably a part of the factor too, where the older pairs, they've caught many a fish or many a rabbit or whatever, um, and the younger pairs are still working on that process as well. So
Well, the thing that I've thought of, well, you were mentioning things that you notice. There's two things that I notice about young eagles. One is that when it comes to a shift change, I think the males get rather impatient. They want to do their part in incubating, and if the female doesn't feel like moving, she's not going to move. But I have seen males try to pick up the tails of the female to try to lift
yeah,
them off the nest because they want to get in there and do that job as well.
yeah,
The other thing that I noticed, like, is you're talking about, being food providers, like with SS, it was they were both brown-headed birds, yet a little bit of brown, and he would just sit off in a tree, and she would have three eaglets, hungry eaglets, and he wasn't bringing stuff to the nest, and
yeah,
I got frustrated that she was paired with him. Now he's a great provider, but initially you could see he wasn't getting it. And Ginny tells a funny story about one of her nests where I think there was a change in one of the adults. The male changed, and he might have been the one that had been hit on the highway that one year. So she is in the nest. She is calling to him. He's sitting in a tree and he's just doing nothing. So she got up off the nest and flew down to the field. They're in a pretty large prairie, and with both talons grabbed a vole with each one and then flew back the nest as if to say, you aren't pulling your weight, buddy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so that to me was indicative of a younger male being at a nest, not the tried and true, honed male that we had
Mhm.
um, previously had um, at that nest. There was something else I was going to add, but you go ahead, and I have to think of what it was I was going to tell you.
Yeah, and one of mine nests that I've done for a while, we had unfortunately the female, something happened to the female, and there was a younger female, and not she was actually really good her first year, which was surprising. Saw her, she was very good at defending, and another one of their things that they need to learn and kind of work together as a pair is defending the nest. So that's something that's with the younger pairs, you see that they're more susceptible to being preyed on, especially other eagles like young subadults. If there's a younger pair, um, they're they just don't have the process down to defending the nests, where the older pairs they're again like clockwork. They're really good at it. Like the female will call in the male, and the male will um, defend the nest from whatever it is. If it's another eagle or a red tail or whatever it may be, defends the nest, and she kind of acts as a barrier in the nest, defending whatever eggs or eaglets or whatever they have. So it's a very it's a process that they have to learn too. So a lot of times with the younger adults, you'll see it's, a sub-adult or something will come in that's not good for the nest and can prey on the nest, and they might not quite be able to defend it. And that's some cases you see it fail where the eaglet's taken or the eggs are stolen or whatever. But that's typical. And again, that's something they have to learn as a pair, how to work together and how to do that process. And it's fun to watch for sure.
I remember you telling me at one of my nests when I was just shocked to see almost an osprey face subadult, so around the 3-year age mark, was at the nest. It was at the roosting tree, so the eaglets had fledged, um, and it was in the tree with the fledglings, and it was crying like a baby,
Yeah,
as a young eaglet will do, crying for its parents to come bring it food. And I was just dumbfounded at how it was mimicking
yeah,
the kids. And I said, I can't believe this eagle is doing this. And you said, hey, it's an easy meal.
yeah,
Um, and then, that changed, my perspective in thinking of what an eagle will do to get food. I understand raiding a nest to eat whatever they can out of the nest, whether it's an eagle nest, a red-tailed hawk nest, an owl nest. If they can prey on chicks, they would prey on chicks. They certainly do at the rookeries.
yeah.
You know, Eagles do not make good neighbors.
They
They
don't. They
they
don't.
just
Yeah.
don't. Don't want
And
to give them the keys to the house.
yeah, and you see that I've seen a couple of nests that I've observed where a little off topic, but where you have an osprey and an eagle in that same area, and I feel horrible for the osprey. It's a smaller bird, and it's if the eagle wants to come in and steal their babies, they're going to do it. There's not much an osprey can do to defend against the bald eagle. It's just so much bigger. So there is that. Yeah, for sure. The eagles are bad neighbors. Actually, a fun little story. I'm going to go off on a little tangent. You're talking about that is, excuse me. one thing I noticed at one of my nests, and actually a couple of them, is smaller birds. Sometimes you'll see them like kind of flying in and out of the out of an eagle nest. And one thing I've observed is there are some smaller birds that it appears they either hang out or they actually nest near an eagle's nest or in an eagle's nest. And it's very interesting. It's those smaller birds and blackbirds and stuff like that. You see them around the nest, and I think it's kind of like your enemy of your enemy is your friend for sure. So, there's never going to be a Cooper's hawk or a sharpshin or some of the, these hawks that prey on smaller birds, merlins or whatnot. They're not going to mess with a bald eagle. So it's very smart of these little birds to kind of hang out with the nesting eagles because,
And a starling does not
yeah.
make a meal for an eagle. So
Yeah, they could care less. But as a Coopers or the other hawks and owls or whatever that prey on birds, it's pretty smart, and I've seen that a number of times at some of the nests. So actually, there was one that was there was a kestrel nest that was actually pretty close to an eagle nest too. That was very interesting to see them nesting in a hollow tree by an eagle's nest, and it makes sense. Like I don't think that an eagle would take a kestrel, probably not. But it's those smaller birds can take advantage of a big big apex predator as a neighbor in those cases. So
we had one of the first times that Ginny and I had met, there was a bird about this age in her neighborhood, and she called me, and I came down with my camera, and we hadn't known each other very long, and there were crows that were just relentlessly coming after these two eagles, and they were flying down the length of lakeshore, and we were watching them just continue to fly away from us. And I said, the crows made their point. They better
yeah,
watch out.
yeah,
And no sooner had the words left my mouth than an eagle did a barrel roll and just snatched one of the crows out of the sky and took it
yeah,
down to the ice of the lake, and that was it for that crow.
yeah,
And I just remember Ginny laughing so hard, saying, "Oh man, it hurt you,"
yeah, yeah,
like that suggestion. And it's like, it's not my fault,
yeah,
but it was, you could annoy an eagle only so long, and then it's just going to decide you've got to go.
yeah. They'll eagles and crows definitely have a an interesting relationship. Like,
Yeah.
and it can go either way. And I've heard stories of large murders, as they're called. Their flock is called a murder, attacking eagles and sometimes causing harm to them. And then the other way it goes is they get a little too brazen, I guess. And an eagle has, as best stories goes, like they'll snatch a crow and it's dinner. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Took it down to the ice and plucked it, but
yeah, yeah,
it was a long way away, but it was really interesting that happened. And kind of on that topic, we talk about what's happening at this time of year, and we're talking about young adults. But one of the things that I think is a big factor to especially young nesting bald eagles are great horned owls,
yeah,
because there's always conversation about what is more apex, a bald eagle or a great horned owl. And I kind of think if you have night vision and silent flight, I mean, I would love those superpowers.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it certainly puts them at an advantage over bald eagles at night. And there are several nests that have nest cams, like down in Florida, that show great horned owls just coming up and knocking the adults off their perch while they're sleeping at night.
yeah.
So they do not make great neighbors.
No,
Um, but there is some stealing that'll go on between the two of them. And then there's areas where it seems like they've worked out an agreement to cohabitate near one another and they're fine. Um, but young bald eagles are certainly going to be abused more for not knowing how to defend the nest when such a apex predator like a great horned owl is around. So it's not always the eagle that's doing the damage. Sometimes the damage is done to the eagle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they gain that experience and they have to learn that. And they'll, in a lot of cases, they might have to learn that the hard way
Yeah.
where they are. But once they know that, you can kind of tell, okay, yeah, last season we got taken by a great horned owl. We got our babies taken or whatever, or a subadult came in and stole some food out of the nest or whatever it is. I think there is a learning curve to the process as well, and hopefully they can be successful. And I'm hopeful for this one too. This lady here. Hopefully this nest is productive, and it's in a lot of cases, as Beth can attest to, sometimes it's just bad luck. I don't know what it is, but some young pair nests just have horrible luck, and
This one
sometimes
has
it
certainly had a
turns.
fair share.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully the luck changes and they're successful. So
But I
that's
have to
all.
say, the neighborhood is a fabulous neighborhood, and the group of people who advise Robin and I on what is going on are absolute gems. And they look out for these eagles. And if they feel like someone is encroaching, they have no hesitancy to get out there and let them know, we're protecting these birds. We want to see them be successful.
Yeah.
So I applaud them, and they know who they are.
Yeah. Great. Very nice. Um, I guess let's, anything else about young adults, that you can think of,
No,
Beth?
I'm just gonna say about this bird, which I find is interesting, and I haven't been able to photograph her other profile, is she has a black streak going through her iris.
Oh, really?
Um, and so it's a flip side of her face.
Yeah.
So, I've wondered if she had had an injury at some point, but
Hmm.
I just find her a particularly fascinating bird.
Yeah.
So I hope
Yeah.
she sticks around and all is well with avian flu and everything else going on.
Yeah, she's got I love her coloring. It's very
Yeah.
interesting to get that. And you can see it on her tail a little bit with the brown. So um yeah, hopefully good things are come of it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, I think that's about it for young adults. There is that learning curve. So and hopefully they get up to speed and understand and they get that experience that they need to be successful, productive eagles for a long time. So but it is a process. It takes a little while. And I think it's from the experience of the volunteers, and I always warn our volunteers that are going into young eagle nests, or new territories that you know you're going to see some weird things. They're not going to be it's not, and they might not be productive, so just keep a heads up for that. So it's not always a straight upward curve to their success as nesting eagles. So sometimes it's a few down years and then they figure it out. So
By the way, Drew, my group is up to 80
yeah.
volunteers. Um, and just to say something about this, because we went back and we explained what a juvenile is. So you have an eaglet in the nest, then it becomes a fledgling once it leaves the nest. It's a first year in its first year of life, and then it's a subadult for the next 4 years. Then it's a young mature, and then just mature. And once you are mature, we have no idea how old
Yeah.
a mature bald eagle is, if it hasn't been watched for a long time. But likewise, what goes around along with that is when um, their first years, they're all brown, but their feet are yellow, and their beaks are brown black, and their eyes are brown. So the evolution of an immature bald eagle to a mature bald eagle is quite a process because eye color changes, beak color changes, and the feather patterns change.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. It does, like, no subadult is the same too. Like the coloring can be very different. There's ones that are very dark, and for whatever reason, they kind of continue to stay dark until they reach their adult plumage, and others like are very speckled, and some are lighter. It's an interesting process to see as they go through, and not as it's taken me a long time to figure out, okay, that's the second year or third year, whatever, sub-adults. So it takes some practice to figure out what they are. And a lot of they vary so differently. It can be tricky.
Well, and one of the reasons why I think it's good to say that is with AI being everywhere now,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen those photos that
Yeah.
show eaglets in the nest and they have a white head and a white tail, and it's like,
Yeah.
that is not real.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot of that stuff out there. So, but
It's scary.
yeah. Okay, we're gonna change shift a little bit to a little more of a somber thing. We just wanted to give a little update on avian influenza. We actually had in our area, it's in the Madison, one of our volunteers found a dead subadult. I believe it was a subadult. Yeah, I think it was a subadult. Maybe it was the
I thought it was
first
an
one.
adult.
No, I think it was a younger bird. I know
Okay.
that. But it might have been a first year. It was either first year or second year, I believe, if I remember correctly. And so unfortunately that was found near one of our longtime nests and at a golf course. And the luckily the crew at the golf course grabbed it. They kept it in the freezer, and one of our awesome um, people that's at Wisconsin DNR picked that up so that we could get that tested. And we just recently got the results, and unfortunately, it was positive for avian influenza. So that's what killed that poor bird, which is a little alarming because it's very close to about 3 or 4 nest territories. So it's something we got to observe, and that we had um, that was in the fall. So this was not where the virus was coming in from spring migration. That was probably likely fall migration, or it was just there during the summer too. So that's a little alarming. It's something we, as coordinators, alerted our volunteers, and something we have to keep in the back of our minds. Looking for sick and dead birds, mostly waterfowl or raptors, not just eagles, other birds, owls and hawks and other ones can get it too as well. So it's something we have to keep an eye out for. And we'll see
Good
what.
news is I don't think there has been a raptor found in
Yeah,
the last month, maybe or so, or maybe 3 weeks. So maybe it's sort of petering out for now, but it
yeah,
it makes it a scary omen for spring.
yeah. Hopefully it's not another 2022. I know we've talked about that in the past and past podcasts, which was a devastating year where we had upwards of 60% fail rates at our nests in the program, and it was tough to watch. So hopefully we're not getting that, but it's something we have to keep in mind. And there's been I think a few cases that been documented in Florida. I haven't heard any other ones. Have you heard anything, Beth, as far as like more of the southern states? I don't think I've heard
I'm
anything.
not seeing
Yeah,
much. It's not
yeah,
like it was in
yeah,
November and December, when there were red-tailed hawks, there were
mhm,
owls, there were a lot of things being
yeah,
found. And even the DNR's newest report is semi quasi
yeah,
stable-ish.
yeah,
Milwaukee County certainly has avian influenza present in some dead waterfowl that was found along Lake Michigan. Um, but to my knowledge, it hasn't appeared
yeah.
anywhere else yet.
Yeah, so hopefully
Knock
we
on
can,
knock on wood.
yeah, and fingers crossed that
Yeah.
we don't we don't have anything, we don't have a repeat. I think it's something that's going to be um, it's going to always be there. It's kind of like it's basically the COVID of the bird
Yeah.
um, bird
And
population.
it's the
Yeah.
reason why your egg prices are so
Yeah, yeah.
knocked out of
So
the park.
yeah,
The
yeah,
one thing, with our statistics that, you know, you and Brenna created this program, and we're collecting this data. We were at 65% in 2022 of nest loss,
yeah,
and a typical season of nest loss was anywhere between like 10 and 18%,
yeah,
meaning the tree fell down in a storm or it got
yeah,
hit by lightning or whatever. So if we take 15% out of that, that means 50% of our nests were lost to avian flu.
yeah,
And that is just a catastrophic number. However, you found that one article about the person who lives in northern Milwaukee area who had done a story about avian flu, who said there is evidence that they can build up a resistance.
yeah.
Um, so that was really fortunate news.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that was, I think they cited a group down in Georgia, I believe it was. So yeah, that's a good sign. And that's something that we're not experts on this topic, but we kind of thought that maybe just, common sense is that they would build up some sort of immunity, some sort of, the defenses against it in the future. The real problem is going to be the eaglets because they are so small,
Yeah.
and they don't have the immune systems that the adults have, and they can't fight it off. And that's what we were seeing, unfortunately, in 2022 was, you know,
Well,
hatchings, and then year after that, the nest failing.
yeah, but the adult, an eaglet can't feed itself, so the
Yeah,
adult is shredding the food for it. So if the adult is shredding the food for it, it's exposed to it,
yeah, it
and it's
is. Yeah,
eating some of that food along
yeah,
the way.
for
So,
sure.
if it, none of the adults that I was watching where the nests died, they may have looked a little bit lethargic, but they didn't look ill.
Yeah,
So they survived it. And the good news for the southern Florida nest is that even though their two eaglets were killed by avian influenza, and they've done the tests and they know that, the female had been reacting to some degree not well. But now that they're past the 2 week mark, they said that they feel like they would be fully recovered at this
yeah,
point. So that was an interesting tidbit to get, that, 2 weeks after the fact, then, of being exposed, an adult should be fine, or at least that's the way I
yeah.
took that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of like our track too. Theirs might be a little bit longer being smaller, but yeah, you would think that that 2 week window makes a lot of sense to um, fight off the virus and be at 100% again. So yeah, that's a good sign. And I think, as I said, it's not going away anytime soon. I just hope that it doesn't mutate to something that's more deadly and, easier to catch type of thing. And that's our fear, but so far so good. So just wanted to update you on that. And I think, how we'll end, we always want to end this show kind of positive, in a positive light. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just fun stories from the early season. I had a long time nest. I've watched this nest. Unfortunately, I'm in Washington now, but watched this nest for many years. And um, these guys were definitely veteran pairs. I think, I tried to kind of age them. I think they were in the 15-year-old at least age on the female. But they were just, it was such a treat once they were on eggs and incubating, to watch them do a shift change. And shift change is basically, where they change places. Whoever's off the nest, male or female, comes in and takes over the duties of incubating. And these guys were just so good at it. Like, the female would call out to the male saying, "Hey, I'm here, and I think I'm a little annoyed and hungry, and I need to stretch out my wings." And he would like instantly come in, and it would literally be like kind of a dance between them, where he would come in or she would come in and just shift, and they were only literally off the eggs, where the eggs were exposed, which can be a problem, mentioning the young adults as well. If they leave the eggs exposed to the elements too long, that can cause the eggs to not be viable. But they are just so good at that, and it was just like a dance. Comes in, changes. They do this little. Beth can attest to it too. It's they do this little kind of like tail waggle, butt waggle, and to get down on the eggs. But it was just such clockwork, and it was just it's a treat to watch them because they're just so well versed, and they've done it so many, probably hundreds of times. They've done a shift change. So that's my fun little story about the early season. Beth, do you have something to mention?
Well, I call that the squishy thing.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's such a technical term of
yeah,
mine, but um, it's like they get squishy on the nest. They rock back and forth and they move their body around to make full contact with the eggs with their brood patch so that they keep the eggs as warm as they can. And I love it when I see the squishy thing. So the thing I was going to add that I thought of was one of my tried and true nests, my oldest nest. Um, Last year I had the chance to see a copulation and the tried and true pairs, I mean, they know what's going on with them and they know how this whole process works. And they were standing next to each other on a limb, and there was a couple of calls, that they were going through, and then she just reached over and grabbed him by the wing and pulled him closer to her, and he got mad, or what appeared to me to be mad, and he bit her on the leg, like as though to say, back off, and he flew away. And then within the next, I would say, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, he flew back and copulation occurred. But I just thought that was pretty funny, and a pretty interesting window into their behavior. And somewhere I read, and I don't know if it was Journey North or it was on the Raptor resource page, or that said females can get a little bit aggressive when they know it's time and that they're fertile, and they can be a little bit aggressive with the males. And I thought, oh, that is what I saw. So, um, and then that year I actually watched them go on the nest and saw her um, lay her first egg, which is not unlike watching a chicken lay an egg if you've
yeah,
ever watched that happen. So it's pretty obvious
yeah,
when you can see that. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, as I said, if you have any good pictures or any questions for us, you can reach us at nestingeaglespodcast@gmail.com. Like the videos and subscribe. We'll plan on doing this throughout the season, so it should be a fun process. Hopefully you're enjoying that. And with that, I think we'll sign off. Anything else, Beth?
No, just keep your sidewalk shovel.
Yeah.
It's
Good
crazy
tip.
out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, as I said, we'll be back. Thank you.